Chapter 6, Gilded. And I'm going to apologize profusely for my horrible French pronunciation, because I just don't got that. Oh, are we actually, like, out in casual clothes? I can't believe what I'm seeing right now.
Keep up, you two. And Magnus, don't try anything weird, please. Mara and I will not go easy on you if you talk Morgan into something stupid.
And you're out, too? Okay, what are we doing? Magnus gave me a sidelong look, a smirk playing on his lips. Don't even think about it.
You can't stop me from at least thinking about it.
I took his arm, speeding my steps to keep up with Vaughn and Mara. Are we doing like a double date? What's happening? You know Dane and Odette are following us, and it would be a shame for Endgame's king to get beaten up by his own guard in the middle of downtown Brazil.
I don't know. The dent to Endgame's reputation might make it worth it.
Only to you, I'm sure. Besides, I think I've been directly involved in enough excitement for today.
Can one ever have too much excitement, Morgan?
Yes. Yes, they can. After blowing up a training room, I think everyone would prefer if I spent the rest of the day being as unexciting as possible. Ah, she did that again, did she? Because that was how my day was going so far. To be fair, it was only half accidental. I mean, destroying the training room was accidental, but we had been working on Cybursts after all. And they designed the training rooms to withstand a certain amount of force. It wasn't that I lost control. The Cyburst was exactly as big as I wanted it to be. I just didn't understand how big I needed it to be. And yeah, I needed it to be smaller.
Look, the first one was fine, but you shouldn't hold back. I know you're scared because your experience with these things isn't great.
That's an understatement, Vaughn. I destroyed a building.
With people in it.
Yes, yes. Trust me, I know. You mention that at least every 2 or 3 days. This time he just gave me a cockeyed grin from where he was leaning against the wall.
I get it. The first time you experience an uncontrolled burst or flare or surge, it's frightening. Nearly every high-ranking Esper has been there. But if you're afraid of your abilities, it will just happen again. You can't suppress Psi forever, Morgan. You need to learn to control it, not just hold it in.
Okay. We'll try again. Can I see you do it one more time?
No, you've watched me do it 5 times. You know the process. I don't want to see you mimic me. I want to see you build and release your own Cybursts using the knowledge you've gained.
I rubbed my face, trying to ignore the whisper of voices behind us. I wasn't thrilled we'd gained an audience, but there wasn't much I could do about them. And Vaughn insisted I needed to learn to work with distractions anyway. So she refused to make them leave yet. She did promise she'd chase them away later, though. I did my best to block them out as I remembered the steps Vaughn had shown me to releasing a Psi burst. As long as I set clear parameters for my Psi, it wouldn't go out of control, she said. Right. Mental image, Vaughn had told me, was the most important element of utilizing Psi. Everyone had things that came natural to them. For the things that didn't, we had to rely on visualization of what we wanted to accomplish. Even if she didn't want me to mimic her, I still tried to recall the general shape and weight of her Psi during her last demonstration. I let out a slow stream of air, closing my eyes as I allowed my Psi to coil up inside me, like a massive spring being wound for release. In front of me, I imagined a narrow corridor to contain the densely packed Psi and limit the destruction to a smaller area. Opening my eyes, I flung the psionic energy at the target on the other side of the room with all the force I could muster. It whipped away from me with enough physical force I could feel it rip through my body. And I knew a split second before it hit that I'd overestimated the force needed. Vaughn realized it at the same instant, but there wasn't time to do anything but grab me and pull me back. The Psi exploded through the target with a deafening boom and white flash. The floor shook, sending us and the others to the ground. Oh, actually set off the alarm. For a moment I sat there stunned, eyes stinging with what I realized was smoke. There was an alarm blaring, then sprinklers, Oh no.
Come on, up!
She was pulling me to my feet while I dug my knuckles into my eyes, trying to clear them.
Everyone out! Hurry!
What happened? I tried to get a look at what I'd just done, but Vaughn had an arm locked around my shoulders as she pulled me into the hall. Caleb activated an emergency door that slid shut before I got a look.
You okay?
I'm fine. I looked up and realized there was a group of younger agents huddled nearby staring at me. I didn't lose control of that. I just made it too big.
Good. I mean, that's bad, but it's good you stayed in control and that you're able to identify what went wrong. Caleb. Vaughn.
Ari had left us alone earlier, but had found his way back. He stopped short when he got a look at me.
Do I want to know what happened? Well, Leone blew up the training room. That's what happened.
Ari's face is like, whoa. Ari's eyebrows went up and he looked at me expectantly. Vaughn told me to. He looked at her.
I told you to fire a cyburst, not blow things up. How bad is the situation to set off the defense protocols and alert the entire compound we're under attack? There's a pretty big hole in 3 separate walls.
3 walls?
You blew a hole straight through the target, and the wall behind it, and the wall on the opposite side of the dressing room, and the wall on the opposite side of the room behind that. Yes.
Oops.
Yeah. A little bit oops. Also the floor's kind of on fire. And some of the training equipment. That would explain the sprinkler system activating. Yeah, and she hit the showers, so there was water from that too. I'm betting the water's not mixing well with the VR simulation room on the other side of the showers.
I mean, that's just poor engineering right there. Who laid it out that way? It's like, yes, we'll put the showers next to the VR room. Ari let out a very fatherly sigh that told me he was never leaving the 3 of us alone during training again. We all needed an adult and Ari was nowhere to be found.
Oh, understood. Let's have the defenses stand down first. Then shut off power to the entire area until the water is no longer an issue.
So that had been fun. After she was done being startled, Vaughn laughed. A lot, considering she was the responsible party at the time it happened. Caleb alternated between looking like he found it hilarious and annoying. Ari handled the entire situation like the world's most exasperated dad once everything had calmed down a little. I got a very stern lecture, which was softened by Vaughn definitely not taking it as seriously as she should. Or at least as Ari thought she should. We're gonna see this too.
I guess we ought to be glad you didn't bring the whole damn building down on us.
It was nowhere near a big enough explosion for that.
This time. Though I think it would be wise to consider moving cyber's training outside going forward. You think? I believe many others will think so as well. Did you see the looks on those rookies' faces, though?
Vaughn, it's not funny. They look terrified of me.
Oh man, that was great! I didn't think you'd explode multiple rooms, though I'm glad you took my encouragement to heart. If you had given more precise instructions regarding the desired magnitude, perhaps it would have been more effective than mere encouragement. Oh, come on! Who here hasn't destroyed part of a training room at least once? I have not.
Caleb, notably, stayed silent until Vaughn elbowed him.
Countless punching bags. I've put holes in the walls a couple of times as well. I seem to recall Jack throwing you through a wall once.
Damn!
First, I threw him through the wall. Second, we were 24.
I have less training than you did when you were 24.
I'm not blaming you, I hope you realize. Vaughn is right that it's not uncommon. It's just uncommon here. Most of this shit goes down at the Academy. We rarely have beginners learning to use their Psi here at the Central Tower training areas. Even at the Academy, there aren't beginners with your level of power. My primary concern is that this is going to cause quite a lot of furor, for the next few days in particular. There were many witnesses, and the damage was extensive. We're fortunate no one was seriously injured. Or worse.
It's not like people aren't already talking about me.
I don't think you understand how significant it is that a small psi burst did this much damage. For most people, a small psi burst dents a target. On top of that, most would be laid out with a screaming migraine, and at least mild psi fatigue from a psi burst of that magnitude. You don't even have a headache. You've been making rapid progress since you started training. Very rapid. It's already been noticed. Neuro enhancement only explains so much. And now this.
Not much I can do about it. First, the council was pushing me to train before I was recovered, and now everyone's freaking out because I'm a little too strong for comfort. I won't hide in my flat for a week to avoid rumors.
Well, we'll at least get you out of the tower for a few hours until the excitement dies down a little. Maybe we can find a way to downplay that you got the entire defense system freaking out from a single psi burst.
He looked almost amused when he said that.
In any case, not like we can continue training when there's a mess to clean up.
That was true, and I doubted they wanted me in another training room soon. And that explained why we were out wandering Braceil, supposedly on an errand. Magnus, though... Yeah. Explain that one. I gave him a sidelong look. Vaughn and I were ambushed by him in the lobby. He tried to sneak out with us, but Vaughn notified his guard, so Mara had come to retrieve him. She even threatened to drag him back up to his office by his braid, which appeared to be a favorite threat among the upper staff who dealt with him on a regular basis. I was the one who intervened. It just annoyed me seeing them shut him down as if he wasn't allowed to leave the building. I understood to at least some degree, especially with the city having been on edge from the Sierra protests. But the situation was calm now, and we had plenty of people to protect him. If something like that happened, it wasn't as if there weren't ways to get him to safety. Mara, Ari, and the others would be there. There were options. And watching them refuse to let him leave as much as they were practically dragging me out of the building to hide me away for a while. It gave the feeling of seeing my future of being either protected or hidden away somewhere. Or both. And I didn't like it. When I stood up for him, Magnus also pushed harder. It took me a little by surprise since he was usually laid back. But we convinced them, which meant the rest of the guard was called down, and now the entire first guard was on a simple delivery mission. I liked the idea of all the elites wandering around on some trivial mission. It had a certain symmetry to it, even if I had no idea where we were going or if there was even a real errand. We all knew it was just an excuse to get me out of the tower for a while. I'd seen the way those rookies looked at me after the explosion. I just couldn't win with these people. Like I said at the tower, first I wasn't progressing fast enough, and now I was progressing too fast. It was ridiculous. When I thought about it, I felt like I should have blown up more than a couple of rooms, just to make a statement. Though I doubt it would have helped me in any functional way. Besides, the others said accidents like this weren't uncommon.
You're frowning quite heavily there, Morgan.
It's been that kind of day.
It always is, isn't it?
What a depressing thing to say.
Sorry about that.
He didn't look sorry, as usual. So why did you come with us again?
It seemed...
Interesting. Yes, I got it.
I was hoping we could leave without the entire guard in tow.
Vaughn and Mara were the only two walking with us, but the others were all following behind. That worked out well.
It worked out about like it normally does. I was pleased to see you push them to let me come too.
I guess it feels a little like we need to stick together.
I suppose it does at that. I'm glad you see it that way.
Our group paused at an intersection, waiting for the light to turn so we could cross. Vaughn and Mara were standing a few steps away from Magnus and I. Where the other guard members were, I wasn't sure. I was keeping my sphere in a pretty tight radius, and they were outside even the dim fog that defined its outer edges. A few other people joined us, and after a moment of silence, a thin little voice spoke up. Pretty! When I caught sight of the little girl, I realized she was staring up at Magnus, mouth agape. This girl. I glanced at him at the exact moment he realized she was talking about him. I guess he did look pretty with the sun behind him, glancing off his long hair like that.
My goodness, what a charming young lady.
The girl's mother looked ready to die from embarrassment.
Lights turned. Let's go, princess.
How rude. I'm going to assume you are speaking to Morgan.
Sure, your highness.
She smirked as we hurried across. The mother pulled her still staring daughter away from us as we reached the other side. Ooh, Mara! Look at you! I like it.
Man, kids always have the worst taste.
Well, kids say just about anything that comes to mind. When I was young, I once shouted at a friend's father who was a bit bald on top, demanding to know where his hair was. My mother was mortified, but my father laughed for weeks afterwards.
Oh! A bookstore! How quaint! We should stop in.
Magnus, we're not on a tour. Come on.
Maybe we should stop and get a coffee while we're out as well.
Vaughn shot him an exasperated glance, and I couldn't help but wonder why they all let him get away with such blatant teasing.
Fine, look. I have a plan. Magnus and Morgan can go over there.
She pointed to a corner cafe.
Just sit calmly. The others are nearby anyway. They'll monitor you. Vaughn and I will go take care of this errand. You two can get some cake or something.
Ooh! We're getting a reward, Magnus.
And babysitters, I notice.
Well, we clearly can't be trusted to behave like adults if we're alone.
Speak for yourself. I am an incredibly mature 42-year-old, you know.
How venerable.
Oh god, I think he's contagious. We'll have to worry about detoxing her later.
I don't care, I'm getting cake! I grinned at them both as we headed for the cafe, and this time I expanded my sphere just to locate the others. Hey, you know what? I hear the swallows got good cake. I was certain Vaughn was already informing them we were splitting up. It wasn't like I didn't know why they were so protective of Magnus. Orders aside, he was important. But it was vexing to be treated like children. Though I suppose they had a reason to be worried one of us would do something stupid. I glanced at Magnus as we took a seat at the cafe, and he loudly called for a server.
I've heard the other agents frequent this shop often.
You've never been?
Only once, a few years ago.
Once handed a menu, Magnus looked down at it, the smile freezing on his face. His brow furrowed, a hand going to his chin as he stared down thoughtfully.
I have no idea what any of this is.
Well, if you never went to cafes, I suppose a list of coffee drinks could be confusing. What do you like? I can help you order.
What I like.
Do you like things that are a little sweet, or maybe better? He suddenly looked uncomfortable, setting the menu down. Instead of answering, he turned his gaze out to the passing cars. Hey. I reached across the table, setting my hands on his. He gave me a startled look that he hastily replaced with his usual placid smile. A familiar mask was back in place. Are you all right? Magnus removed my hands from his, smiling wider.
I'm fine.
Yep, that's a good sign. I didn't think he was. It was just a small thing, but I could see there was something more to it that than he was letting on. He pushed the menu away and leaned on the table, watching me curiously.
I wonder how far we'd get if we tried to escape. Have you ever thought about that now that you've begun working on teleportation? You have, yes? A little?
I've only worked on understanding the concept and limitations of teleportation for a few days. Not actually putting it into practice, though.
Oh dear. I may need to ask Ari to speed up your training a little. Never thought of making a break for it even once?
Not really.
Given up on going home already?
We've talked about this.
Have we?
Yes, a while ago. You said Endgame would never stop looking for me.
Have we really?
The way he said that caused me to study his face for a long moment. I couldn't quite put my finger on his expression. It was perplexed, frustrated. It was the day you gave me a tour of Core Solaris. The frown deepened, then relaxed into faint resignation. You don't remember?
I remember some of that.
It hit me then with full force. There was something more to Magnus than just being forgetful, wasn't there? Something deeper than that. A few of his other stray comments came back to me too, and I wondered what happened to him. He rested his chin on his hands as he smiled at me, and I knew I'd probably never be able to ask him about it. But I made a mental note to tread more carefully when it came to that subject. So what does that mean? Okay, something to keep in mind going forward.
Anyway, I hear your teleportation has been going well.
Better than my Cyburst, if we base it on how many times I've destroyed something during training with Ari.
Our little queen is showing exceptional talent. The council is pleased. But it's concerning.
It's concerning that I have talent?
Even we view powerful Espers as a potential danger, Morgan.
Even when they're your own agents?
Of course. Think about me. What would happen if I were to go rogue? Why, the entire world would be in danger.
You'd think after all these years they would understand you won't do that.
Well, I certainly do my best to ensure they're confident in my loyalties.
You shouldn't have to do that.
You know, Endgame started as a force to protect the world. It's becoming a force to control Espers. And did you know, the more connections we Espers have to the outside world, the more unpredictable we might be?
Ah, it was this again. This thing he did where he was trying to communicate something other than what his words were saying. I didn't have the patience to decipher it. What's this about, Magnus?
The council has discovered I was sending messages to your parents for you.
Ah.
I've been officially reprimanded.
Wait, what? Reprimanded how? Is everything...
Oh, it was nothing major.
I didn't want you to get into trouble for my sake.
Don't worry about it too much. What are they going to do to me? But they're watching now, so it may be difficult to continue.
They should reinstate my access as they don't want us to circumvent their orders. It's getting ridiculous at this point.
I told you, the more connections we have to the outside, the more unpredictable we are.
You can't tell me other agents don't communicate with their families.
Of course they do. Some of them. You'd be surprised how many agents aren't close to their families at all. Endgame becomes their family, and other bonds wither. We all become completely entwined with Endgame. You aren't like that. Our ideals haven't been impressed upon you. Duty hasn't been impressed upon you.
I hope you realize what you're talking about sounds like brainwashing.
Well, I don't know if it's brainwashing, Certainly specific ideas from form the core of Endgame values, and they are taught from a very young age. While some of our agents push back against those ideals, there's little they can do from the inside. What are they going to do? Rebel and end up demoted or incarcerated? Or complain? No one is going to change or topple Endgame from complaining.
Neither am I. Or are you suggesting the council is afraid I'm going to topple Endgame because I want to call my mum?
You fight against the current more than the average agent because of your connections to the outside, and beliefs that don't align to what our agents are taught. And, in a way, you encourage those around you to do the same. Whether it's circumventing orders, or influencing the things we do, such as encouraging the others to let me come with you today. Without you, they never would agree. If I hadn't taken an interest in you, I never would have disobeyed orders. And on top of that, you are very talented. The last queen was like this too. Because she came to Endgame later than usual, she did not always do things as the council wished. And they were never quite happy with her.
I ran my finger over my lower lip, watching him carefully. Was it possible Magnus had only come with us today hoping to get me alone so we could talk? That was the feeling I was getting anyway. The way he said that, about, like, they were never very happy with her. They didn't cause... I mean... Jack certainly believed that there was a cause for his sister being killed. Did the council... But why would the council intentionally do that without a backup plan for another queen? I mean, okay, maybe you don't like her, but... Or did she see something, or did the Moirai see something in regards to her, and they were like, alright, we need to nip off this branch. Yeah, I'm gonna go flexible. Are you trying to tell me I should be careful?
I'm telling you that you should be very careful.
Or what?
People of our rank are priceless, Morgan. In some ways, irreplaceable. It doesn't mean they won't try to find ways around that if they deem us dangerous. If they feel they can't control us.
It seems there are limited ways to replace people of our rank, Magnus. It's not as if they have kings and queens just waiting in the shadows to take our place. His expression darkened, but oddly he didn't respond to that right away. And when he did... I mean, I'm like, was he a science baby born for this purpose? Were they not able to copy a queen quite correctly?
I said it before. Endgame has its secrets, Morgan. Do not assume its council is trustworthy just because they've convinced everyone they are. Even the purest of intentions can tarnish with time. And Endgame has been around for many years.
So what does being careful look like?
Don't show them every card in your hand going forward. It's always best to have a few tricks up your sleeve.
So... hold back. Hide my full abilities. I wasn't sure I knew how to do that. You kind of have to know what your full abilities are in order to know what to hide. And you can't figure out your full abilities if you can't train.
Well, that sort of talk is not fit for Endgame's king and queen. It certainly doesn't suit such a beautiful day. It's nice to spend time in the sun once in a while, isn't it?
Yeah. And there was one of his breakneck subject changes again to signify the conversation was over. I, on the other hand, could not shift my thinking quite so fast. And for a while, we sat in silence. The server came back, and I ordered a coffee for us both. It was a little while later that Magnus brought the previous subject up one more time.
I'll try to talk to the Council again about your system access.
Don't do it if it's just going to get you into more trouble.
I already said it. What else can they do to me?
Else? But still,
You two are still here then?
and they were back. I set my mostly empty cup on the table and looked up at her. Where did you think we would go with 4 people keeping an eye on us?
Well, I'm almost shocked we didn't get a call that Maggie talked you into doing something wild.
We just sat here and talked, that's all. She looked back and forth between the two of us several times. I knew there was no way my expression was neutral after what Magnus and I discussed earlier. But she didn't inquire further.
It should be alright for us to head back to the tower. Everything should have simmered down a little. Sprinkler should be off, alarms reset. Hopefully the fire is out.
I'm pretty sure they had the fire put out before we left.
I guess we'll find out.
The fire was indeed out when we arrived back at Corsolaris, and the damage was being repaired. I learned what the others meant about rumors the moment we were back. There was a shift in the atmosphere. The way people looked at us, the lower murmur of voices. So I'd come straight to my flat alone and had been there since we got back. And I spent most of my time thinking about what Magnus had said to me, about hiding my actual ability. I wasn't used to doing that. I also didn't enjoy having to be suspicious of everyone. Maybe Magnus had learned to live like that, but I didn't think I could. I'm kind of surprised, though, because she has been hiding the fact she is an Esper. Like, up to this point, right? So she must have known there were some things that she could do, even if it was like, you know, very, very low level, kind of infantry stuff. I'm surprised she's like, I could never, like, live in such a way that I'm, like, hiding who I am and what I am. I'm like, you've been doing that for a long time, though, right? Unless I've missed something? So what alternatives were open to me? Magnus had asked earlier if I had ever thought of escaping, but where I could go that Endgame couldn't reach me. Some place like the court would just be the same as walking into Crimson's arms, and that would be worse than Endgame. There were some Espers that took refuge on Syrah. I didn't even know how I'd managed that sort of escape, especially now when things there had gone to hell. When I chose Endgame, I didn't expect it to be like this. I didn't expect I was coming to a place people would warn me about the leadership. Was it a mistake? But if it was, I didn't know how to correct it now. I pulled a pillow on my lap, frowning out at the blue sky. Magnus seemed to have been telling me to not rock the boat, but what if I needed to rock the boat? Not just for my benefit, but for his too. A sudden thought hit me and I straightened, eyes wide and stomach fluttering. My mind went back to what Lethe had said the afternoon I met her, that there was something significant blocking out the future for the Moirai, and I was at the center. Was I going to do something drastic here? Were they going to force me to? That made little sense considering she said they needed me while Magnus had said I represented a change people didn't like. I was probably overthinking it. But what if I wasn't? Ugh. The person I went to with most problems was Mum, and I couldn't even talk to her about this. Even if Magnus hadn't been caught, I doubted he'd let me express any of this to her. I flopped against the arm of the sofa, throwing an arm across my eyes. Now what? I wasn't a good little soldier. There was no way I could be that for them. In the end, I had only so much patience, and no matter how well I tried to play that part, it wouldn't work. Eventually I would snap or slip up. Especially if they kept trying to isolate me from the outside. Feeding me breadcrumbs wouldn't sustain me much longer. I could try to hold back during training. I could keep my frustration to myself. But for how long? I hadn't meant for there to be a big event today. I wasn't trying to do something powerful. So how effective would I be at holding back? It wasn't a mask I could maintain for long. I wasn't like Magnus. And that meant I would have to think about what to do if, at some point, my not being controllable became a problem the Council believed it needed to fix. I wonder if there's some other way to get a message to Mum. Some way that doesn't involve Magnus. Everything usually went through the net and all communications within Corsolaris were monitored, but what if there was a way to contact her the next time I was out of the compound? I always had people with me, and there was no way I'd have time for a lengthy conversation. But if the situation was as dire as Magnus made it seem, maybe all I needed was to let her know I may need help. But would that put them in danger? Was Endgame capable of harming civilians? I needed to think on that more. As a single person, I couldn't go against Endgame. I couldn't spark the revolution Magnus indicated they feared I might. But if I had to, I would find a way to run. Even if, more than ever, I felt like I was in way over my head. I thought about that for hours, turning the situation around in my head to look at it from every angle. And I fell asleep that evening on the sofa without even changing my clothes. System reboot. Hello? Establishing connection. System access granted. What is happening? What's going on? I awoke with a start, pain shooting through my shoulder blade as a reminder the sofa was not a great place for sleeping. I sat up, rubbing my forehead, wincing at the sound of an unexpected notification in my head. What? Wait, what? I pulled up the message screen, staring at the ghost image of my overflowing inbox. What time even is it? 5 o'clock. Figures. Way too early. Not surprising, since I'd fallen asleep quite early last night as well. Still groggy, I stumbled to the kitchenette to make coffee. While that was happening, I decided to change and shower. That would help wake me up a little as well. I was halfway through the shower when I realized my system access was back. I made quick work of rinsing off so I could focus more on the situation. Toweling myself off, I found myself on my bed trying to work out what happened. The system access was returned with no warning or explanation, as usual. Magnus must have done something, convinced the council to restore access. As I dressed, that was the only explanation I could come up with. Would have been nice to get some kind of note about it instead of waking up to the message notifications. I still had a couple of hours before training started, so I went to get that cup of coffee and curl up on the sofa to peruse my messages, of which there were so many. Most of which I didn't want to deal with. It was still early, so I couldn't call Mum, but I could at least send her a proper note, one that didn't need to go through Magnus. Maybe before training, I'd send him one asking what happened. I pulled open my message center, starting a new one. Hi, Mum. It looks like I can finally send messages again. I hope you're all doing well. I know it's been a few days since we heard from each other. You can imagine things have been a little hectic. And I guess you could say I'm still trying to get used to the way things are around here. And they're still trying to get used to me. Things haven't been what I expected. And not always in a good way. But that's how it goes sometimes, right? They have their way of doing things and I have mine. Sometimes those clash. Sort of like when I first started at uni. It's still a little difficult to say what things are going to look like for me long term here. But at least I'm not blowing things up. Okay, that's not true. I blew up a training room yesterday. Not intentionally, though. I know I've been keeping kind of quiet about the details of what's going on here. That's been to do with how we've been sending messages. There's been some disagreement on whether I should be granted system access back again. I think they're just struggling to decide what to do with me. They're not used to high-ranked Espers showing up out of the ether the way I did. It's caused a stir. Anyway, now that I can send messages again, I thought you might like to hear a little more about what happened. And what's been happening since. Brace yourself, this is going to be a long message. I want to call as soon as I get a chance, but it might be easier to read it all first. It took a long time to compose that message. I had about half an hour left before training by the time I was done. Since I'd already had a shower and a quick breakfast, I wasn't in much of a hurry, though. I hit send and stood, taking a deep breath. Just being able to do that much felt like such a weight had been lifted. I'd been holding it a lot, and it was nice to finally get it all off my chest. I was in the middle of pulling a shirt out of the drawer when the door chime went off. A little early for Vaughn to be picking me up. Yanking the shirt over my head, I went to answer. To my astonishment, it wasn't just Vaughn. Caleb and Ari were with her, all looking uncustomarily grim.
Morgan.
I looked between the three of them, wondering what was up. I motioned them inside, figuring it probably wasn't meant for a hallway discussion. What's wrong? Did something happen?
Morgan, we detected that your system access was reinstated as of 3:15 this morning.
Yes, it was active when I woke up this morning.
It's not supposed to be active, Morgan. No one reinstated your system access.
It was active when I woke up this morning.
I hate having to ask this, but did you restore it yourself?
I was asleep at 3:15, thank you very much.
It appears you sent a message a little while ago.
Are you spying on me? How close attention is your council paying to me that they noticed to the minute when my access came back online and that I sent a message to my mother?
You're being monitored, Morgan. This isn't a surprise.
It's not a surprise. Just a violation of basic rights. I didn't turn my nanosystem back on.
You do possess the ability to mimic king ranks. And you were in close proximity to Magnus yesterday.
Are you saying I restored my system access in my sleep?
Well, that would be a new trick. You need to get changed into your uniform. The council has called a meeting. Consider yourself cordially invited.
Oh goody, finally they deigned to meet me, after all this time. What, am I under arrest now?
Of course not. But the council has questions for you. If you reinstated access...
I did not.
Intentionally, it would constitute a violation of orders.
Well, that's just lovely, isn't it? 10 minutes ago, the day had been perfect, and now it all came crashing down again. I was thinking as she was writing that long message that would not be my first instinct. I would have, contacted Magnus at the very least and been like, oh, hey, when did my system access get... thank you for reinstating my system access. I'm going to work on a message to my mom. And then he would have been like, that wasn't me, or yes, that was me, or whatever, instead of I'll just assume the council got over themselves and gave it back without any messages. But now we're here. I buried my face in my hands, taking deep breaths to steady the nerves.
Hey, don't worry about it. We believe you, of course. It's not like you haven't unconsciously used your abilities before.
Great. I'm thrilled to know you don't think I'm a liar. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my tone, though I knew this wasn't her fault. Or anyone's fault.
Perhaps you should take your time getting ready. You don't want to meet with the council in a state of emotional upset.
What other state should I be in right now, Ari? This isn't fair. None of this. It wasn't fair to bring me here. It wasn't fair to ignore my health and try to push me into training. It wasn't fair to ignore my wishes or keep me isolated. And it isn't fair to treat me like a criminal for sending a message to the woman who gave birth to me.
We're not trying to treat you like... Her frustration is valid, Ari. The council has been shitty about her since the moment they found out she existed. Morgan doesn't have to stay calm for them.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you! Finally, someone admitting I was right to feel this way. It's just never enough for them. I'm too slow, I'm too fast, I'm too stubborn, I'm too demanding, I'm too independent. I'm not good enough or I'm too good. I clenched my jaw, reminding myself I was aiming the rant at the wrong people. It was the council that needed to hear this. I'll get changed. I headed into my room to do that. If I had reinstated access on my own. No, I wouldn't assume that yet. There were other options. Magnus could have done it. Someone else could have done it. I had no idea they had ways to restrict access that didn't involve Magnus. Someone in admin could have made a mistake. I wouldn't implicate myself. Besides, I had been asleep. That I knew. For now, I would focus on getting dressed. I had an awful lot of grievances to air before the council. I take this as an opportunity to do so. And I wouldn't think about anything else beyond what I was going to say when I finally met these people. And, well, regardless of what else was true, I'd sent a message to my mother before they noticed. That was a victory I would secretly relish no matter how much they complained. I just hoped the meeting wouldn't go terribly. But I had a feeling I was going to need every ounce of strength and shred of patience in me now that I was meeting the people Magnus warned me about just yesterday.